the standard, I say standard, this is already very high tech going through clinical trials and things, but basically if we drill into our skulls, we can implant electrodes that go deep into our brains, and if we stimulate those, it's kind of like how if you apply electrical impulses to a coma patient, you strengthen their muscles while they're out in the coma so that they can come back and not just have completely degenerated muscles. It's similar to if we can stimulate the deeper parts of our brains, we can actually remedy some of the effects of dementia. Now, one of the problems of deep brain stimulation is that although these implanted electrodes can help with alleviating the effects of dementia, etc., they have some pretty nasty side effects. As any open brain surgery would have, it's very invasive. You have to obviously make a hole through the skull. Well, what do we do to alleviate those side effects? How can we stop that from happening? Well, the main thing that you could do is just remove those electrodes altogether. You don't need to stab any electronic metal probes into your brain anymore. You can just get rid of them. But, well, okay, sounds cool in practice. How do you actually get rid of these invasive electrodes then? Remember, these are already cutting edge research, but we're already thinking many steps ahead. So how do we remove those electrodes then? Well, it's tricky because you need to enter the brain, right? And so without drilling a hole through the skull, there's only one other entrance through the brain, and that's from the inside, through the blood. And a couple of you who have more of a biology background, you'll immediately know the problem is the blood-brain barrier. So for those of you who do other sciences and maybe haven't come across that term, basically the blood-brain barrier, it's a particular point at which your blood systems get up to where your brain basically begins. And the kind of matter that the brain is doesn't allow just the blood to just enter the brain. I mean, that would be catastrophic. In fact, actually, it specifically doesn't allow many different types of molecules, especially ones that are water soluble, cannot get through to your brain for the most part unless specifically transported there. It's very tricky to get things across into your brain, and that's why it's called the blood-brain barrier. So basically, how the hell are we supposed to get little electrodes to go through there instead of piercing it through the skull? Well, basically, nanoparticles. Then how do you get that across the blood-brain barrier? Well, there's a specific gas, nitric oxide, NO. And with this gas, basically, it's involved a lot in transporting stuff across the blood-brain barrier. The scope of it is kind of outside of this video. All you need to know, the body uses NO to some extent to get certain things across the blood-brain barrier. Say we have some sort of nanoparticle and we want to be able to wirelessly stimulate that, and then it turns on and goes zap. How do we actually do that? There are a few different ways of making a wireless nanoparticle start to produce electricity. There's optically responsive, magnetothermal, and magnetoelectric. So that's basically if you apply light, it makes electricity. If you apply a magnetic field, it makes heat. Or if you apply a magnetic field, it makes electricity. Now, the problems with, say, an optically sensitive is that, to our biology friends out there, you already know, high doses of radiation can cause mutations. Well, they can cause all sorts of damage. Magnetothermal and magnetoelectric stimulators, the problem with them is that they could cause hyperthermal damage to tissues, just like heating them up. And you're basically microwaving your brain at that point, So that leaves us with ultrasound and basically turning sound into electricity and doing that inside our brains. So that's fun. So that's the piezoelectric effect that is taking place there. So what this particular team have done is they have made a little nanoparticle which has a piezoelectric effect to it, so that when it's hit with ultrasound, it starts to basically make electricity. So this particular nanoparticle, it doesn't just piezoelectricize itself, it also basically releases a little bit of nitric oxide. And this has been enough in mammalian systems to get the nanoparticle across the blood-brain barrier into the brain, and then eventually into the deep brain tissues. And from there, the researchers were basically able to apply ultrasonic field, and they go in the inside of the brain, and bingo bango, you start to stimulate those neurons, you stimulate the tissues, you stimulate the brain, and you start to remediate some of those effects of dementia and other neuronal diseases that come with aging. And yeah, so if you like this video, consider subscribing, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye.